During the military conflict between the Republic of China and the Empire of Japan in 1939, the Second Sino-Japanese War, nearly 3,000 Chinese troops mysteriously disappeared in the south of Nanking, east of China. The missing troops were never found. The Chinese authorities thought that the soldiers might have been taken prisoner by Japanese. But then, why did the Japanese leave their arms? Later, when Japanese records were checked, it appeared that the Japanese never captured such a large number of Chinese soldiers. So where the hell did they go?
Section 51.
Hi everyone, what's up? This is DOZgeek and you are watching Section 51 on YouTube. Big thanks again for your support to the channel and welcome to the new subscribers. Before starting, I invite you to like and share this new video right now to keep supporting our work and to send us positive vibes. If you are ready, let's start right now. The Second Sino-Japanese War that started in 1937 and ended in 1945 was a military conflict that was primarily waged between the Republic of China and the Empire of Japan. The war made up the Chinese theater of the wider Pacific theater of the Second World War. As in all wars, many horrors and slaughters were committed. But in 1939, a totally unexpected incident occurred. Nearly 3,000 troops mysteriously disappeared in the south of Nanking, east of China. They were prepared to defend the area from the Imperial Japanese Army. And 2 hours later, an aide reported contact with the troops had been lost. When their leader came to inspect the next morning, there was no trace of them anywhere. Their guns were found stacked beside their small cooking fires, but not the people who carried them. The entire troops were gone. Had the Japanese attacked during the night and dragged them all away? That seemed impossible. Yet the colonel and his aides had not heard any sounds during the night. What then had happened to those men? Nobody captured nor anyone attacked the troops. Then how could they vanish? At that time, the Japanese pushed toward the heart of China. They began to march on Nanking, the capital, but the mighty Yangtze River stretched across their path. To reach Nanking, they would have to cross a narrow bridge. The Chinese commander, Colonel Li Fuxian, decided to fight at that bridge. If he could stop the Japanese there, he just might save his country. On December the 10th, 1939, Colonel Li Fuxian stationed his 2,988 troops across an area in the rolling hills of Nanking. The men were placed along a line some 3.2 kilometers long, set up to defend a bridge on the Yangtze River. They were equipped with large amounts of heavy artillery and were quite prepared to fight to the last man if necessary. They seemed ready for battle. The colonel went to his tent to get some sleep. The next morning, Colonel Li Fuxian was awoken by an aide that they were unable to make any contact with the troops on the defense line. Soon afterwards, he formed and led an investigating party to find out what had happened with the troops. On arrival at the line, every position was deserted. However, there was no sign of struggle or fighting and not a single soldier to be found anywhere. The equipment remained. The heavy artillery stood in position ready to be fired, but there was no one there. The only way across that river was over the bridge. Near to the bridge, they interrogated the remaining sentries for information. They swore that not a single soldier had crossed the bridge during the night. None of them had seen or heard a thing. 1 or 2 soldiers might have slipped past them, but not nearly 3,000 soldiers. The missing troops were never found. After a long time, when the Japanese had withdrawn and the war finally ended, the Japanese's records were examined for some clue as to what may have befallen the missing men. The Japanese had attacked Nanking at that time. The Chinese authorities thought that the soldiers might have been taken prisoner by them. But then, why did the Japanese leave their arms? When their records were checked, many astonishing facts came to light. The Japanese never captured such a large number of Chinese soldiers. Several theories have emerged to explain the troops' disappearance. At the time, only 2 answers seemed possible. First, they must have gone over to the Japanese to fight them, or secondly, they must have quietly surrendered. But there is absolutely no record of them in official reports. Along with these 2 basic options, some people related the incident with Hollow Earth theory and UFOs. Some researchers think that the troops could have been taken into the inner Earth through a portal in the hill area of the Nanking region. For some reason, these troops were led by an extraterrestrial being to an inner world. Maybe these troops were somehow stunned or hypnotized while they were relaxing in their camps, and they were unable to think clearly. Then they walked into the portal and were transported to another place. Moreover, at that time, many officers reported flying objects in the sky that they could not identify. Could it be just a coincidence? The purpose of the capture of so many soldiers was they were simply used as a military force, a mercenary force to fight certain battles that the aliens needed them to fight. Where could have they gone? Were they taken to another planet or to another dimension? It is unlikely that the soldiers had deserted because there were no hiding places in an area where vegetation was so sparse. 3,000 soldiers would be detected sooner or later, but the mystery remains because these people were never found. If our reality is surrounded by a number of invisible parallel worlds, isn't it possible for a person to enter one of those unknown realms simply by mistake? If that happens, the person in question would find him or herself in a different reality, probably unable to ever get back to our own world. Do you remember this movie, Nimitz: The Final Countdown, made in 1980 with Kirk Douglas and Martin Sheen? This American science fiction war film, directed by Don Taylor, was about a modern nuclear-powered aircraft carrier that unintentionally enters a mysterious electrically charged storm-like vortex and travels through time to the day before the December 7th, 1941 attack on Pearl Harbor. And do you also know the Philadelphia experiment that is said to have happened in 1943? We already made a video about this subject on the channel. Allegedly, in the fall of 1943, a US Navy destroyer, the USS Eldridge, was made invisible and teleported from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to Norfolk, Virginia, in an incident known as the Philadelphia Experiment. This incredible experiment was recorded with codename Project Rainbow in the archives of the US Navy. All these cases, whether they are pure science fiction or whether they really happened, strongly remind us of what happened to the 3,000 Chinese soldiers. There are indeed many commonalities or similarities, and that's what's disturbing. As always, there are many speculations and no real answers because we don't have the tools or information to understand these kinds of incidents. As for UFOs, there is no explanation, and that's the problem. The fact remains: 3,000 soldiers vanished into thin air, and their disappearance remains an unexplained mystery. all scenarios are possible. However, it might be interesting to conduct real research on this historical incident and even to find the families of the disappeared soldiers to try to cross-reference all the testimonies. But what doesn't help is that a country like China is very closed in terms of freedom of expression of its citizens. I think it would be very complicated to be able to communicate with all the parents of those missing. And why not imagine that maybe one day soon, the day when some extraterrestrial beings decide to make their official appearance to humanity, these missing soldiers could be returned alive to us by the aliens 80 or 100 years later, without having aged. It would be absolutely incredible. Imagine the shock for families. And you, what's your theory on that? Where could they be? Is the story of those 3,000 missing soldiers really over? I hope you enjoyed this video. While waiting for the next video, you can find us on social networks, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Please like, share, subscribe, support Section 51. I'll be back really soon. Open your eyes, watch the sky, live long and prosper.